Emma's heart fluttered as she gazed out the window of the bridal suite. The sun bathed the city in golden light, the perfect day for what was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life. Her fingers played with the lace of her wedding dress as she imagined the future. Her future with Liam, the man who had swept her off her feet, a millionaire with a heart she thought was made just for her. They were an unlikely pair, she knew that. A girl from a small town and a man who could buy half the world if he wanted to. But love, as they said, didn't care for such details. She believed their love was enough to overcome the differences between them. The door opened, and Emma's best friend rushed in, her face pale, eyes wide with shock. Emma could feel her stomach drop. "Emma, there's a note." "A note? On her wedding day?" She took the paper with trembling hands, her heart racing faster than it ever had before. With each word she read, her world crumbled around her. Liam wasn't coming. He couldn't do it, he said. The pressure, the responsibility, it was all too much for him. He was leaving her, right here, on the day they were supposed to start their lives together. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. She crumpled the note in her hand and tossed it aside, staring at the empty space where Liam should have been. She had given him everything, her heart, her trust, her dreams. And now, in return, he gave her this. Betrayal. Humiliation. She felt the weight of the day collapsing on her, but there was no time to dwell on it. She needed to leave, to escape the whispers and pitying looks that would soon fill the room. People would talk. Oh, they'd talk for sure. The girl left by the millionaire. It would be on everyone's lips by tomorrow. Emma gathered her strength, her mother's voice ringing in her ears. Tough times never last, but tough people do. She forced herself to believe it as she walked out of the church. Alone. Days passed in a blur, each one more painful than the last. She couldn't bear to think about Liam or the future that had vanished in the blink of an eye. And then, one morning, she felt the first sign, sickness, the kind that didn't go away. Panic set in, and she rushed to the nearest pharmacy. 2 pink lines confirmed her deepest fear and her greatest hope all at once. She was pregnant. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the test in her hand. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Liam was gone, and now she was left to raise a child, no, 4 children, as she would later find out, on her own. But in that moment of quiet solitude, she realized something profound. She didn't need Liam. She didn't need his money or his pity. She had her own strength, her own will to survive. Her mother had once told her, "When one door closes, another opens." Emma smiled to herself, a tear slipping down her cheek. Maybe this was the new door, the one that would lead her to a future she hadn't planned but could learn to embrace. The pregnancy was tough, especially when the doctors told her she was expecting quadruplets. 4 babies, all at once. A blessing and a curse, she thought, but mostly a blessing. Emma worked day and night, building her own business from the ground up while preparing for her new role as a mother. She sold handmade crafts online, growing her side hustle into something more. Her children gave her the drive she needed, the push to keep going, to succeed. The years passed, and Emma's life became a whirlwind of diaper changes, late-night feedings, and business meetings. Her children, 2 boys and 2 girls, grew up knowing nothing of the man who had once captured her heart. She didn't speak of Liam, didn't let his shadow linger over their lives. They were hers and hers alone, and that was how she liked it. Still, there were moments, in the quiet of the night when the children were asleep, when Emma would allow herself to wonder. Where was Liam? Did he ever think of her? Did he ever regret leaving her behind? It didn't matter, she told herself. She had moved on, built something real for herself and her children. They didn't need Liam. Yet, deep down, she knew that part of her would always carry the scars of his betrayal. You can't simply erase someone you once loved, no matter how much you wanted to. Time heals all wounds, they say, but some wounds leave behind marks that never truly fade. Years had passed, and Emma's life had transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined. She had built her business from the ground up, juggling the responsibilities of being a mother to 4 energetic children and running a growing company. Her children, her quadruplets, Daniel, Ethan, Olivia, and Sophia, were the center of her world. Every decision she made was for them, and they had become her strength, her joy, and her purpose. Emma had made peace with her past, or so she thought. The man who had left her on her wedding day was a distant memory, someone who belonged to another life. She had no desire to reopen that chapter, not when she had built something so meaningful without him. Her business was thriving, her children were happy, and she had surrounded herself with friends who supported her. Life was as good as it could be. But fate has a funny way of bringing the past back when you least expect it. One evening, at a charity gala she had been invited to through her business connections, Emma found herself mingling with some of the city's most influential people. It was a rare night out without the kids, and she welcomed the opportunity to let her hair down a little. The event was elegant, the kind that drew in people from all walks of life, including those she had worked hard to forget. She was laughing with a colleague when she felt a strange sensation, like she was being watched. Turning slowly, her heart nearly stopped. There, across the room, stood Liam. Older, perhaps more polished, but undeniably him. His gaze was fixed on her, and the moment their eyes met, it was as if time froze. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't seen him in years, and yet here he was, looking at her like no time had passed at all. She quickly turned away, hoping to avoid him, but it was too late. Liam was already making his way toward her, his eyes never leaving hers. "Emma," he said, his voice lower, rougher than she remembered. "I didn't expect to see you here." She forced a smile, trying to keep her composure. "It's been a long time, Liam." Before he could respond, her children ran up to her, their faces bright with excitement. Daniel tugged at her dress, asking if they could get some dessert from the buffet. Emma's heart sank as she saw Liam's expression shift from casual curiosity to one of utter shock. He looked at the children, his children, and the resemblance was undeniable. Liam's gaze darted from the children to Emma, realization dawning on him. "They're mine, aren't they?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Emma didn't answer immediately. She didn't owe him anything, not after what he had done. But there was no use in denying the obvious. "Yes, Liam. They're yours." The weight of her words seemed to knock the wind out of him. He looked at the children again, his expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emma's calm exterior faltered, anger bubbling to the surface. "Why? You left me. You walked away without a second thought. I didn't see the point in telling a man who couldn't even stand by me on our wedding day that I was carrying his children." Liam stared at her, guilt and regret etched into his face. "I made a mistake. I was scared. Don't," Emma interrupted, her voice sharp. "You don't get to justify what you did. You left, Liam. I had to pick up the pieces, and I did it on my own. They don't know you, and that's not going to change." The children, sensing the tension, stayed close to Emma's side, their wide eyes taking in the unfamiliar man who seemed so interested in their mother. Liam took a deep breath, his eyes softening as he looked at the children again. "I want to know them, Emma. I deserve that chance." Emma's heart clenched. She had always known this day might come, but she had hoped it wouldn't. "They don't need you, Liam. We've been fine without you. I've been fine without you." Liam's jaw tightened. "I'm their father, Emma. You can't keep them from me." Her pulse quickened. She hadn't expected him to push this hard, to demand a place in their lives after all these years. "You left us, Liam. You don't get to come back and pretend to care now." "I'm not pretending," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I messed up, but I'm not going to mess this up. I want to be part of their lives." Emma's mind raced. She had protected her children from the hurt Liam had caused her, but now, standing in front of him, she wasn't sure how to shield them from the truth. They were too young to understand the complexities of what had happened between their parents, but one day they would ask questions, and she would have to answer them. "I don't need your money, Liam. she said, her voice quieter now. I don't need anything from you. This isn't about money, he replied, shaking his head. It's about them. I missed out on their lives, and I'll regret that forever. But I'm here now, and I'm not going to walk away this time. Emma looked at him, her mind swirling with memories, both good and bad. There was a time when she had loved this man, believed in him with all her heart. But that time had passed, and she wasn't sure she could trust him again. Not with herself, and certainly not with her children. I'll think about it, she finally said, her voice soft but firm. But don't think for a second that I'll let you waltz back into their lives without proving you're here for the long haul. Liam nodded, his eyes full of determination. I'll prove it to you, Emma. I promise. Emma didn't respond. She watched as Liam walked away, leaving her standing with her children by her side. She wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was certain: Liam was back, and this time, he wasn't leaving without a fight. Liam couldn't stop thinking about the children. His children. The realization had hit him harder than he expected, and it kept him awake at night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw their faces, so much like his own, and the image of Emma standing there, fiercely protective, kept replaying in his mind. He had been absent for too long, and he knew it. But now that he knew the truth, he wasn't going to let more time slip away. He had already lost too much. Emma had made it clear she didn't want him involved, but that didn't change the fact that he was their father. And he had rights. The more he thought about it, the more determined he became. He wanted to be part of their lives, and if Emma wouldn't allow it willingly, he would make sure the law was on his side. It wasn't an easy decision, taking her to court, but he saw no other way. He contacted a lawyer, explained the situation, and they assured him he had a solid case. After all, he was the biological father, and he had the right to seek custody or, at the very least, joint custody. Liam hated the idea of dragging Emma through a legal battle, but he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. The children were his flesh and blood, and he deserved a chance to be their father. The court papers were served, and the legal proceedings began. Emma, furious and feeling betrayed once again, wasted no time in hiring her own lawyer. She couldn't believe Liam was doing this. After all these years, after everything, he was going to force his way into their lives through a courtroom? The anger boiled inside her. He had left her to raise the children on her own, and now he wanted to claim rights. It was like a slap in the face. The courtroom was a cold, formal place. Lawyers spoke in calm, controlled tones, discussing custody arrangements, parental rights, and the best interests of the children. But beneath the surface, emotions were running high. Liam sat across from Emma, watching her, trying to gauge her feelings, but she wouldn't even look at him. Her focus was entirely on the case, on defending the life she had built without him. The judge listened as both sides presented their arguments. Liam's lawyer spoke of his desire to be part of his children's lives, how he had missed out but now wanted to make amends. They painted a picture of a man who regretted his past mistakes and was ready to step up. Emma's lawyer, on the other hand, emphasized the fact that Liam had been absent for years, by choice, and that Emma had been the one to raise the children alone. She was the one who had built a stable, loving environment for them, and introducing Liam now could disrupt the peace they had known all their lives. As the case dragged on, Liam was granted visitation rights. He could start seeing the children, supervised at first, to allow them to get to know him. It was a small victory, but for Liam, it was everything. He didn't expect Emma to forgive him overnight, but this was the first step in proving that he wasn't going to walk away again. The first few visits were awkward, to say the least. The children didn't know who he was, and Emma made no effort to explain. He was just Liam, a stranger who suddenly appeared in their lives. The kids were curious but cautious, not sure what to make of him. Liam tried to keep things light, playing games, telling stories, and slowly, little by little, the walls began to come down. The children started warming up to him, especially Daniel, who shared Liam's love for sports. They would kick a ball around, and for a brief moment, Liam felt like he was part of something real, something that could grow. But Emma remained distant, watching every interaction with wary eyes. She didn't trust him, and she didn't trust his motives. Liam had hurt her before, and she wasn't about to let him hurt her children. Every time she saw them laughing with him, her heart ached. She couldn't deny that Liam was making an effort, that the children seemed to enjoy his company. But that didn't change the past, and it didn't erase the years of silence. Then came the day when Liam asked for more. His lawyer filed a motion for joint custody, and Emma's heart sank. She had been bracing herself for this, but it didn't make it any easier. She couldn't bear the thought of sharing her children, of splitting their time between her home and Liam's. They had always been hers, her little family, and now Liam was trying to take that away from her. The courtroom battle escalated. Lawyers argued back and forth, with Liam pushing for more time with the children and Emma fighting to maintain full custody. The tension between them grew unbearable. Outside the courtroom, Emma confronted him, her voice trembling with anger. "You can't just waltz back into their lives and expect to be a father now," she said, her eyes blazing. "You don't know them. You don't know what they need." "I'm trying to get to know them," Liam replied, his voice steady. "I made mistakes, Emma. I know that. But I'm here now, and I'm not walking away again." "It's not that simple," Emma snapped. "You don't get to make up for the past just because you've decided it's convenient for you now." Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not asking for everything at once. I just want a chance, Emma. I deserve that much." "You left," Emma said quietly, her voice breaking. "You left me and them. You don't deserve anything." The words hung in the air, heavy with years of pain. Liam stared at her, knowing there was nothing he could say to take back what he had done. But he also knew that he couldn't give up. The children were his, and he wanted to be part of their lives, no matter how much Emma resisted. The judge's final decision came after weeks of back-and-forth arguments. Liam was granted joint custody, with a gradual increase in time spent with the children. It wasn't everything he wanted, but it was a start. Emma was devastated, but she had no choice but to comply with the court's order. As the reality of the new arrangement set in, both Emma and Liam had to face the fact that their lives were forever intertwined now, whether they liked it or not. Emma knew she couldn't shield the children from Liam any longer, but that didn't mean she had to forgive him. Not yet. Liam, on the other hand, was determined to make this work. He had lost too much time already, and he wasn't going to let pride or fear get in the way of being the father his children deserved. He would prove to Emma, and to himself, that he wasn't the same man who had walked away all those years ago. Liam stood outside the courtroom, the papers in his hand feeling heavier than they should. Joint custody. It was a victory, but it didn't feel like one. He had won the right to be in his children's lives, but Emma's words still lingered, cutting deeper than he wanted to admit. She was right. He had left. He had walked away, and no amount of legal paperwork could erase that. But this wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the future. Liam knew he couldn't undo the damage he had caused, but he could change what happened next. He could be the father they needed, the man they deserved. And maybe, just maybe, he could earn Emma's trust again. Not her forgiveness, he wasn't even sure he deserved that, but at least enough trust to coexist, to build something stable for the children. He watched as Emma walked out of the courtroom, her head held high, her expression unreadable. She didn't look at him, didn't say a word. He knew she was furious about the outcome, that this was the last thing she wanted. And yet, even in her anger, there was something about her strength that made him pause. She had raised those children on her own, created a life for them without him. She had been both mother and father to them, and now he was asking her to share that role, to let him in. It wasn't just his battle to win, it was hers to lose, and she knew it. Weeks passed, and the new custody arrangement began to settle in. Liam spent more time with the children, taking them to parks, helping with homework, trying to learn about their lives, their favorite foods, their bedtime routines, the little things that made them who they were. It wasn't easy. There were awkward silences, moments when they didn't know how to talk to him, moments when he felt like an outsider in his own family. But slowly, they started to warm up to him. Daniel began asking him about sports, Olivia liked to show him her art, and Ethan and Sophia would laugh at his silly jokes. Still, something was missing. The connection with the kids was growing, but with Emma, it remained as cold and distant as ever. She kept their interactions brief, formal, and strictly about the children. There was no warmth, no acknowledgement that he was trying. And as much as Liam hated to admit it, her approval mattered to him. He wanted to show her that he had changed, that he wasn't the man who had left her standing at the altar all those years ago. One evening, after dropping the kids off at Emma's, Liam found himself lingering at the door, unsure of why he couldn't just leave. Emma looked at him, clearly annoyed but waiting for him to speak. "Emma," he began, his voice softer than he intended. "I know this isn't easy for you. I know you never wanted me back in their lives, and I get it. But I'm trying. I'm really trying to make this work." She folded her arms, her eyes cold. "This isn't about what I want, Liam. It's about the kids. They seem to like having you around, so I'm not going to take that away from them. But don't think for a second that this changes anything between us." Her words stung, but he nodded. "I'm not asking for that. I just want you to know that I'm here for them. I'm not going anywhere this time." Emma's eyes flickered with something, doubt, maybe, or sadness. But she quickly masked it, shaking her head. "You're only here now because the court forced it. If it weren't for that, you'd still be living your life without a care in the world about us." Liam stepped forward, his voice firm. "That's not true. I didn't know, Emma. I didn't know about the kids. If you had, she interrupted. "You would have done what? Walked back into our lives and made everything better? You think that's how it works? You think a few weekends with them erases the years you weren't there?" Liam exhaled, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I know I can't erase the past. I know I messed up. But I'm here now, and I'm trying. Can't you see that?" Emma's jaw tightened, her eyes hardening again. "Trying isn't enough, Liam. It's not about what you say you're going to do, it's about what you actually do. Words don't mean anything anymore." He wanted to argue, to tell her that he was different now, that he wasn't the same man who had left her heartbroken. But he knew it would fall on deaf ears. Emma had every right to be angry, every right to doubt him. She had been the one left to pick up the pieces, and now he was asking her to believe in him again. "Look," he said, his voice quieter now, "I know I can't make you forgive me. And I'm not asking for that. I just want to do right by them. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. That's all I can say." For a moment, something shifted in her expression, a crack in the wall she had built around herself. But just as quickly it was gone, and she stepped back, closing the door slightly. "Good night, Liam," she said, her voice final. Liam stood there, staring at the door, feeling the weight of her words settle on his chest. He had come so far, but the distance between them still felt insurmountable. Over the next few months, Liam continued to be a part of his children's lives, growing closer to them with each passing day. They began to trust him more, to open up to him, and Liam finally felt like he was becoming the father he should have been from the start. But with Emma, the tension remained. She was polite, but distant. Civil, but cold. It wasn't until Daniel's birthday that something shifted. Liam had helped plan a small party for the kids, and as they sat around the table, laughing and joking, Liam caught a glimpse of Emma watching him. There was something in her eyes, something softer, almost like the Emma he had known all those years ago. After the kids went to bed, Emma approached him, her arms crossed but her expression less guarded than usual. "You're doing a good job with them," she said, almost reluctantly. "They seem happy." Liam looked at her, surprised by the unexpected compliment. "Thanks," he said quietly. "It means a lot coming from you." Emma sighed, running a hand through her hair. "This doesn't change anything between us, Liam. But I'm glad they have you now. They need you." He nodded, not pushing for more. "I know. And I'm not going to let them down. For the first time in years, there was a moment of quiet understanding between them. It wasn't forgiveness, and it wasn't a fresh start. But it was something. Something small, something fragile, but something real.